sequence is going to start from a hip mount. So I'm going to come into the fabric. I'm not doing anything fancy to get into my hip mount. I'm just going to rock and roll my way through. Some tips for kind of doing this would be to hold a little bit higher than shoulder height, and you really want to think about doing a pull-up as you bring your knees in. Another thing I'll commonly talk about is a lot of times, especially ladies, the lady watchers, will be in an arch position, sticking their booties out and lifting their chests. And for this particular entry, you want to actually do the opposite and find a C shape. So actually hollowing out through the core and creating the C shape to make room for your knees to come in towards your chest. So I'm just going to show that. So I'm going to hold on a little higher than shoulder height. I'm going to pull down into my fabric to get rid of any slack or stretch. And then I'm going to bring my knees into my chest in front of the fabric as if I were trying to do a cannonball into a pool. Another thing I commonly will see is people leaning their heads back. You want to bring your head towards your knees. So again, pulling down, knees come up. As soon as your knees come through the center, you're pretty safe. So you want to start to give the fabric the weight of your legs, and then allow the slide of your feet down towards the floor to let the fabric rest at your hip bones. Your right hand, your right hand is going to stay on, your left hand is going to be free, and you're going to find this little balancing point. If you've never done this before, I would say work on just this skill of finding your balance on your hip points, and stop right there. If you have done this before, your right leg is going to bend, and you're going to let it come through the fabric as you rotate your hips to the ceiling. So again, I'm going to show that. So I started with my hips closed to the floor. I'm going to bend my right knee, and as my right leg comes up and through, I'm rotating my hips to the ceiling. From here, I've made an X with my fabric once I grab my inside fabric with my left hand. So it looks like this if I were to stand up and put my foot to the floor. Yeah? Of course, I'm not going to do that when I'm doing the sequence, but for the sake of just showing you the steps, I want to make it really clear. So I was here, and my left hand comes up and makes the X. Yeah, so here's the X. Now, another thing that you can start to train for yourself is pulling your arms out like this to make your X's. There are a lot of aerial positions that will require this kind of strength as opposed to this kind of strength, and it's very different. So you do want to absolutely train this strength, and this is a good move to train it. So we're working on Tinkerbell. I'm going to be bringing both knees up through the top of the X together. So I'm going to pull, making space, and then both of my knees are going to come through the top, and I'm going to find that hip balance again. So here I am, and I'm sliding, and this time I'm going to go ahead and come fully up. And I can, as long as my arms are out to the side, I can let go of my hands on the fabric. The fabric is pushing very much so into my ribs. Not my ribs, my hips. I'm going to reach up with my left hand and have a flamenco grip. My right hand is going to come to my chest, and I'm going to start to come out the back. As I do, I'm going to sneak my right arm in front. I'm just going to give myself a little spin so you can see, and bring my knees together so I end up in this cute little position. My right shoulder is what's keeping me in place. When I'm ready, I'm going to find the hip key on my left side. So I'm bringing myself to the left. I'm just going to come down and grab hold of my ankles, trapping the fabric in my hip crease on the right side. When I'm ready, I'm going to look up, I'm going to come up and bring my feet to the floor. I'm going to show that again, a little sped up for those of us that have gone through the steps and done the work. The main thing about a Tinkerbell position is you do need to have this strength, right? So if you're working on just Tinkerbell alone, you could bring your left leg in or your right leg and just try making that X, bringing your knees up through the center and getting into Tinkerbell. I'm going to talk about Tinkerbell one more time just before I go into the big longer version of this. So as I make my X, for this particular sequence, it does matter which way you cross, but for Tinkerbell in general, it doesn't, yeah? So for this sequence in particular, I believe it's the outside leg fabric is closer to you. Is that true? Let me think about that. The outside leg fabric is closer to you. Yeah, so, I would practice it this way if you're intending on doing this sequence. So I'm gonna start to pull my fabrics apart, and I'm gonna bring my knees up. Again, I'm really thinking curling my head into my knees into my chest, and making myself a ball. I let the fabric rest on my upper thighs, and then I let my feet drift towards the floor to find my spot. My left hand is gonna reach up and grab above my head. My right hand is gonna come to my chest, and I'm leaning more to the right than I am the left so that I can make this transition very smooth. I trap my right shoulder in front, and then I cross my legs. To come down, this is probably the scariest part, and if you're practicing this, you could just bring your right foot to the floor and release your hands at this point, right? You don't have to go all the way to the side. Another thing to know about Tinkerbell, if you're practicing it, is there is another alternative way out. So if you really hate that kind of twist of the shoulder, that's okay. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about that. You can just come up through, bring your arms out to the side, bring your arms up, and slowly bring yourself back down. Yeah? So that's another way out of Tinkerbell. Of course, you don't end up in that pretty side shape at the end for your hip key. Yeah? Okay, let's go through it, put it together as one big long sentence. I'll say less words. So we're gonna start in our hip mount. And I will do a video eventually of rock and rolls and a conditioning video. Rock and rolls are really important for being able to get into your hip mount safely. So my hands are a little higher than shoulder height. Knees go up and through, expand through the legs. Right hand is on the fabric, right knee bends, rotate the hips. You can pose here, you can take an arm out, whatever you like. Left hand comes to the free fabric. You're now gonna make an X and bring both knees up through the center. Yes. Now, you're here. Your left arm goes up to the fabric behind you, right arm to your chest, sneaky out, and then here you are, and then here you are. And if you cross your legs, it's just a little bit more of a safety. You're sure to go into that hip crease. If you haven't done a hip key yet by itself, this is probably, again, not for you. Be able to see at all angles. So my right hand is up, my right leg comes through, and I point my hips at the sky. I've now made an X in my fabric, although you can't see it. When I reach up and grab with my left hand to the fabric in between my legs, I have an X. I'm going to take both of my knees up through the center of the X. And then from here, I'm going to lean to the right quite a bit. So I'm going to be leaning more into my right hip. My left hand is going to come up behind me, and I'm going to find what is commonly referred to as a flamingo grip. So I'm going to take the back of my hand forward so that it ends up correct when I come through. My right hand is going to come to my chest, and then as I come out, I'm going to find myself with my shoulder in front of the fabric, and then I can bend both knees. Once I'm done there, I'm going to come down into a hip key and take both of my hands to my ankles. From here, one last time, this time with a spin and much less explanation. Yeah? So. And that's our little sequence. Yay! Hope you enjoyed it.